Ron Johnson is the guy who beat Senator Russ Feingold in Wisconsin. Wisconsin used to be an incredibly reasonable state. Of course, it would elect Republicans from time to time, and it would elect Democrats, but it has a strong progressive background and cared about the average guy. Now, these days, it elects nut jobs like Ron Johnson. So let's start.
The fact of the matter is, though, is he's a sick, demented, evil individual. And unfortunately, I don't think society can keep sick, demented individuals from obtaining any type of weapon to kill people. I mean, somebody who wants to purposely harm another individual is going to find a method of doing it. And this isn't an issue about guns.
No,
this is just really an issue about sick, demented individuals. And it's a tragedy, and I don't think there's a solution here in Washington to solve this problem.
No. God forbid we should try to solve the problem. No. Let's, is there crazy people all over the country? Of course, everybody agrees there is, right? I'm sure Ron Johnson would agree. And what Ron Johnson says is we should have no solution. So they should all be able to buy AR-15s and shotguns and all that stuff and kill as many people in your local area as they possibly can. No. God forbid we should solve the problem. All right, keep it going, Ron.
Is there anything that we as a society can do to protect ourselves from these kind of twisted minds?
Unfortunately, I don't believe so. I mean, I wish there was. I wish I could wave a magic wand and make this tragedy go away. I wish I could wave a magic wand and pass a law to prevent something like this in the future. But the fact of the matter is, I really don't think there is, other than look to our families, look to our communities, and start taking a look at our education system. We've got to reinstill values in what we're teaching our children.
No, but wait, it doesn't take a magic wand. We already had that law. It would have banned the AR-15 and the magazine that holds 100 bullets. It banned them from 1994 to 2004. It didn't take a magic wand at all. It just took politicians who cared, who were courageous. Bill Clinton got it passed. Now, you guys, the Republican Party in 2004, let that lapse. And would he have been able to kill as many people without his AR-15? Of course not. Of course not. Everybody knows that. Everybody has to concede that. Oh, well, but there's nothing we can do. Nothing we can do. No. Ron, what you mean to say is there's nothing we can do as long as I keep taking donations from the NRA. I choose not to do anything because I get paid to be their bitch. And besides which, I'm a lunatic and I believe it. I believe it's part of our freedom that you can buy any kind of weapon you like and fire it at anybody you like. If this guy had fired RPGs, I bet you Ron Johnson would have said the same exact thing. Nothing we can do. I wish there was a magic wand to stop rocket-propelled grenades, but obviously there isn't. Hey, we're considering going to war with Iran because they might get a nuke. But is there no limit to the Second Amendment? Can Bob down the street have a nuclear weapon? It says in the Second Amendment, right to bear weapons. This is a weapon, right to bear arms. Nuclear arms are literally arms. It's in the definition. So can Bob have a nuclear weapon? Well, there's nothing we could do. I wish we had a magic wand, but we just don't.
Well, directly to that point, there's madmen all over the country, and we got to make sure, but they need their weapons, right? We can't do anything about it. Why are we so hell-bent, Republicans so hell-bent, anybody in general, hell-bent on keeping it from Ahmadinejad's hands? Hey, he's a madman. We're trying to keep the weapon from his hands, right? It's the same thing. You want to regulate it because you think somebody's crazy and might use it. So in this case, it's different because we're here at home and we don't need to regulate that. There's just madmen with nothing they can do about it. It's the same thing.
No, absolutely right. If you really believe, as Louis Gohmert, representative from Texas, said earlier, as all these Republicans say, that more guns equals more safety, more weapons equals more safety, then you should be ecstatic that Iran might get a nuclear weapon. Because the more weapons, the more safe we are, right? That's your logic, right? Keep it going, genius Ron Johnson.
First of all, criminals will always be able to get whatever they want. I mean, for example, the left always uses the term assault rifles, and they're really talking about semi-automatic weapons that really are used in hunting. I mean, that's what happens in Wisconsin. These are, rifles that people use in hunting.
Yeah, because apparently we have incompetent hunters in Wisconsin. Like an old school rifle. God, it's such a pain in the ass. Instead, we should be able to go into the forest, go and just mow down the deer. Because that proves you're a real man and a real hunter. All right, Ron Johnson, keep the genius going.
It's really an issue of freedom. And I swore an oath to defend the Constitution. And part of that Constitution is the Second Amendment, which guarantees the right to bear arms. And these types of laws infringe upon that right, and I don't agree with them. You simply can't keep these weapons out of the hands of sick, demented individuals that want to do harm. And when you try and do it, you restrict our freedoms.
No, you can keep them out of their hands. You're choosing not to. And by the way, in the Second Amendment, the very first phrase is, a well-regulated militia. A well-regulated militia. You know, people say, oh, no, Jake, you're misunderstanding those words. Back then, they didn't mean well-regulated. They meant Cocoa Puffs or sprinkly stars. No. Well-regulated. I thought you guys were strict constructionists. You wanted to just interpret exactly what's in the Constitution. It says in the Second Amendment you're allowed to have bear arms if you're part of a well-regulated militia. Oh, don't quote the Second Amendment. We love the Second Amendment, just don't quote it, right? Oh, but there's nothing we can do, yeah, la, 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 la. He's drawing no boundaries, none. How about an IED? Can he have IEDs? What is he not like? Can he bring in a tank to a movie theater and start shooting it? Some people do have tanks in this country. We've lost our minds in this country for weapons. Okay, I mean, I guess we're going to be tested on how many people were willing to get massacred before we turn around on these laws. And Ron Johnson is saying in this interview, basically, I don't give a damn how many people are murdered. I'm never going to turn around on this, and I don't think that this right is limited in any way, shape, or form, or should have basically any regulations. I mean, to that point, do you know that the Republicans voted down a bill that would say that people on a terrorist watch list can't get guns? They think even terrorists should have guns. Keep it going, genius Ron Johnson.
And I think that is the truth. That if somebody, a responsible individual, had been carrying a weapon, maybe they could have, prevented some of those deaths, some of those injuries. I think that's just the truth.
And maybe you could have had a firefight and killed many more people. These are people in a theater.
But
this
you had
is
a massacre.
man.
You had a massacre as it was with them undefended.
That's
Senator.
right.
Yeah. Okay, so he had thrown smoke canisters first. It's a dark theater. Dark theater, smoke everywhere. Ron Johnson, brilliant senator from Wisconsin, his idea is pull more guns. How do you know the second shooter is a good guy or a bad guy? Remember, in Columbine, Colorado, only about 15 miles from Aurora, Colorado, there were two shooters, Klebold and Harris. So how do you know if they're part of the same team? How do you know which team the third shooter's on or the fourth shooter? How do you know when the cops come in who to shoot? If 4 guys, 8 guys have their guns pulled, what the hell are the cops supposed to do? This is a recipe for disaster. And I tell you all this not because of what's already happened. Now that's already horrible and tragic enough, and as you can tell, I'm very emotional about it. But I'm telling you, you think it's over? We're just getting warmed up. This is the tip of the iceberg. These guys have convinced the country to buy more and more weapons. We're buying 4.5 million guns a year in America. Do you know how many of these massacres are going to break out? And yes, the next time somebody else is going to have a gun, because now everybody's scared to death of the guns, so they're going to protect themselves. And then next time, 2 or 3 people are going to start shooting at each other, and it's going to be a mess. You mark it down. It's definitely going to happen. And well, massacres, that's just become part of the American culture. That's everybody. Can anyone deny that we won't have another massacre with guys firing semi-automatic weapons with magazines that hold dozens of bullets? Does anybody think that's not going to happen again and real soon? But you have senators like Johnson saying, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it because we get paid by the NRA and we are choosing not to do anything about it. Genius Ron Johnson, one more.
But I really would hate to see a tragedy like this used to promote a political agenda to reduce Americans' freedom. Enough of our freedoms have already been taken away. We don't want to lose any more.
No, because Republicans would never want to politicize a tragedy like 9/11, which they ran on for nearly a decade, which they ran all of their campaigns on, which they invaded countries that didn't have anything to do with it. It ran an enormous, gigantic political campaign on. Oh, no, you wouldn't want to politicize a tragedy. Does anyone believe if this shooter was Iranian agent, that we wouldn't already have launched bombs on Iran? No, seriously. Forget the Muslim angle. Say that he was an Iranian agent, shot 70 people in a movie theater in Colorado, 12 of them dead, right? He shot 6-year-olds. Who doesn't think that the Republicans would have politicized that and right now be calling for the full-scale invasion of Iran? No. You're only allowed to politicize a tragedy if it suits Republican purposes. If it doesn't, and it hurts their funders like the NRA, then, golly gee, I cannot believe anybody would politicize this tragedy. This tragedy is political. It is because of the political decisions that Republicans have made and Democrats have cowered to and oftentimes supported that these people are getting killed. More and more of them are getting killed by these assault rifles, semi-automatic weapons, an endless number of bullets in these magazines. It is their fault. I'm not mincing words. It's not a maybe or anything like that. More people got killed because of these politicians refusing to do anything about these incredibly deadly weapons. It is your fault, Ron Johnson. Is that clear enough?